Opening hook. There comes a point in a man's life when he slowly realizes something powerful. Not everything deserves to be chased. In fact, many of the things men spend their entire youth running after, attention, validation, approval, status, and temporary admiration, often leave them emotionally exhausted instead of fulfilled. And the older a confident man becomes, the more clearly he understands this truth. Because life teaches lessons that no book can fully explain. Pain teaches, failure teaches, betrayal teaches, time teaches. A younger man often believes confidence means proving himself to the world, proving he's successful, proving he's attractive, proving he's important, proving he matters. But an older confident man understands something much deeper. Real confidence begins the moment a man no longer feels the need to constantly prove anything. That's why confident older men move differently. They speak differently. They react differently. They carry themselves differently. There's less desperation, less emotional chaos, less need for attention. And strangely enough, that calmness often makes them more respected and more attractive than ever before. Because people can feel the difference between a man who is chasing validation and a man who has finally found peace within himself. Today, we're talking about 10 things confident older men never chase. And if you recognize yourself in some of these signs, you may already be carrying a level of maturity and quiet confidence that people deeply admire. Let's begin. 1. Confident older men never chase attention. One of the clearest signs of insecurity is the constant need to be noticed. Many younger men believe they must dominate every room they walk into. They speak loudly, interrupt conversations, constantly seek reactions, always try to impress everyone around them. But confident older men understand something most people learn far too late. Attention is temporary. Respect is lasting. There's a huge difference between the two. Attention can be gained instantly. Anyone can create drama. Anyone can become loud. Anyone can force people to look at them. But respect takes time. Respect is earned through character. And older confident men value respect far more than temporary attention. That's why they rarely feel the need to perform for others. They don't enter every conversation trying to prove they're the smartest person in the room. They don't constantly talk over people. They don't desperately seek approval through jokes, stories, or bragging. In fact, many confident older men are surprisingly quiet, but their silence carries presence. When they speak, people listen carefully, not because they're loud, but because their words carry weight. That weight comes from experience. Younger men often confuse loudness with confidence, but mature men know true confidence is calm. The strongest man in the room is often the one who has nothing to prove. Think about the people you naturally respect. Usually they aren't desperate for attention. They don't beg to be admired. They don't force themselves into every spotlight. Instead, they seem grounded, comfortable, stable, and people naturally feel drawn toward that energy. Confident older men understand this deeply. They've already spent enough years learning that chasing attention becomes emotionally exhausting. Because attention never truly satisfies insecurity. No matter how much praise a man receives, if he lacks inner confidence, he will always need more. That's why mature men stop building their identity around other people's reactions. Instead, they begin focusing on something more important. Character. Because character lasts longer than popularity. And ironically, once a man stops desperately seeking attention, people often become more interested in him. That's the strange paradox of confidence. The less desperate you become for approval, the more naturally respected you are. 2, they never chase validation. This lesson changes a man completely. Confident older men stop depending on other people to tell them who they are. They no longer build their self-worth around compliments, praise, or social approval. Why? Because life teaches them something painful but important. People's opinions change constantly. One day people praise you, the next day they criticize you. If a man bases his identity entirely on outside approval, his confidence will always remain fragile. That's why mature men begin developing inner stability. They stop asking the world for permission to respect themselves. This doesn't happen overnight. Most men spend years trying to impress others, trying to appear successful, trying to appear important, trying to appear attractive, trying to appear powerful. But eventually, many older men realize something. No matter how hard you try, not everyone will like you. And once a man truly accepts that truth, something powerful happens. He becomes emotionally free. He stops pretending. He stops shaping his personality around approval. Instead, he begins living honestly. That honesty creates confidence. Confident older men understand that real self-worth comes from within. It comes from discipline, integrity, self-respect, not from applause. That's why criticism affects them differently. Of course, they still listen. Of course, they still improve, but they no longer collapse emotionally every time someone disagrees with them because they already know who they are, and people can feel that certainty. A man who constantly seeks validation often appears emotionally needy. But a man who quietly respects himself creates a completely different presence. He becomes calmer, more grounded, more attractive. There's something deeply powerful about a man who no longer needs constant reassurance. Especially in today's world where so many people desperately seek approval online through social media, comparison, and attention. Confident older men slowly step away from that trap because they finally understand peace is more valuable than endless validation. 3, they never chase every woman. One of the strongest signs of maturity is emotional discipline. Confident older men understand attraction differently than insecure men. They no longer chase every woman who gives them attention. Not because they've lost interest in love, but because they've gained standards. Younger men often confuse desire with connection. They become emotionally attached too quickly. They seek female attention to boost self-esteem. They fear loneliness so intensely that they tolerate unhealthy relationships. But mature men eventually learn something important. Desperation destroys dignity. And confident older men protect their dignity carefully. They understand that attraction should never require begging. That's why they don't constantly over-pursue. They don't abandon their self-respect trying to convince someone to value them. Instead, they focus on mutual respect, emotional maturity, peace, compatibility. And ironically, this calm energy often makes them far more attractive. Because confidence is magnetic. A man who remains emotionally grounded creates a sense of stability. People feel safe around emotional stability. That's why many women naturally respect older men who remain calm, patient, and self-controlled. Confident older men also understand another important lesson. Not every attractive person is good for your life. Experience teaches them that chemistry alone is not enough. Beauty fades, excitement changes, but emotional peace matters deeply. That's why mature men become more selective with age. They stop chasing temporary excitement. Instead, they value loyalty, trust, kindness, emotional stability. And if someone constantly disrespects them, manipulates them, or creates chaos in their life, they quietly walk away. No begging, no drama, no desperate chasing. Because confident older men understand this. Being alone is far better than losing yourself trying to keep the wrong person. That wisdom usually comes after heartbreak, after disappointment, after emotional pain. But once a man truly learns that lesson, he moves differently forever. 4. They never chase. Trends, confident older men do not constantly reinvent themselves to fit every new social trend. They don't panic trying to appear relevant. They don't desperately copy whatever society currently rewards. Because maturity teaches a man something important. Most trends disappear, but authenticity lasts. Younger men often feel enormous pressure to fit in, how to dress, how to speak, how to act, what to post online, what lifestyle to display. But older confident men eventually grow tired of performing. They realize pretending is exhausting. And more importantly, pretending slowly disconnects a man from himself. That's why confident older men become more authentic with age. Not perfect, authentic. There's a difference. They stop trying to impress everyone. Instead, they begin focusing on living honestly. Now, this doesn't mean mature men stop learning or improving. Far from it. Many continue growing their entire lives. But they grow from self-awareness, not insecurity. There's calm confidence in a man who knows exactly who he is. He doesn't feel the need to become a copy of everyone else. And in today's world, authenticity stands out. Because so many people are pretending to be richer, pretending to be happier, pretending to be more successful, pretending to be more confident. But confident older men slowly stop participating in that performance. They become more comfortable in their own skin. And comfort creates confidence. That's why many mature men actually become more attractive with age. They stop trying so hard. And ironically, that relaxed authenticity becomes magnetic. 5. They never chase revenge. One of the greatest signs of emotional strength is the ability to let go. Confident older men understand that revenge often keeps a person emotionally trapped. When someone hurts them, betrays them, or disrespects them, they don't spend years obsessing over getting even, because they understand something important. Hatred drains energy, and energy becomes more valuable as a man grows older. Younger men sometimes mistake anger for strength. They believe revenge proves power. But mature men know uncontrolled anger destroys peace. It damages health, relationships, sleep, judgment. That's why confident older men focus on protecting their inner peace instead. Now, that doesn't mean they tolerate disrespect. Not at all. Mature men still set boundaries. They still walk away from toxic people. They still learn from betrayal. But they refuse to let bitterness consume their lives. Because bitterness slowly poisons the person holding it. Older confident men understand this deeply. They've already seen enough conflict to know that endless emotional battles are exhausting. So instead of chasing revenge, they chase healing, growth, peace, wisdom. And that emotional restraint becomes powerful. A man who can control his emotions becomes difficult to manipulate. That calm emotional control creates respect, especially in a world where many people react impulsively to everything. Confident older men no longer want constant drama, not because they're weak, because they're wise. Ending reflection, as men grow older, many eventually realize something surprising. Life becomes lighter when unnecessary chasing stops. Less desperation, less comparison, less emotional chaos. And in its place comes something much more valuable: peace. That's why confident older men often appear calmer than younger men. They've already learned many lessons the hard way. They know attention fades, validation changes, beauty changes, trends disappear. People disappoint you, but self-respect remains. And once a man builds genuine self-respect, his entire presence changes. He walks differently, speaks differently, responds differently, because he no longer feels desperate for approval. And ironically, that calm confidence often makes him more attractive than ever. So remember, confident older men never chase attention, validation, every woman, trends, or revenge. Instead, they focus on peace, purpose, growth, emotional stability, and self-respect. And that quiet confidence becomes impossible to ignore. Outro, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Which lesson connected with you the most? And what's one thing you stopped chasing as you became older and wiser? Thanks for watching.